Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release Nightwatch Demons Are Forever. It's a Shudder original and it's coming to Shudder on Friday, May 17th. So this is a no spoiler review. Also, they're dropping on that same day the original film. This is a sequel film. The original one is from 1994 called, fittingly, Nightwatch. I also put a no spoiler review up for that because it's also going to be on Shudder. And if you want to watch both the films, watch that one first and then watch the sequel, you can go ahead and do that. But also, you don't have to. You don't have to have seen the first one in order to see this. Although I would say that I like the first one more than this one. No big surprise there because sequels usually aren't liked as much as the original films. Holds true in this instance. But let me go ahead and talk about Nightwatch Demons Are Forever. Written and directed by Ole Bornedal, who did films like Masturbator. Yeah, you heard it. I Am Dina, Just Another Love Story, and Small Town Killers. This is a Danish film, so just know going into it, subtitles. But Danish language is a slower language when it comes to film, so the translations stay on the screen longer. So for people like me, who are slower readers, it's okay. It's much easier to do than, say, a French film, because sometimes those just move. So this one, pretty leisurely pace as well. Characters don't typically speak super fast either. So very manageable for people like me. Anyway, Shudder Original coming to Friday, May 17th. Once again, synopsis of this one. So it's on the I don't want to say too much. It's literally decades later on the tails of the first Nightwatch film. In the first Nightwatch film, a guy ends up taking a Nightwatch job at a morgue. Some terrible things end up happening, and then people end up moving on with their lives once everything is resolved. So this film picks up, like I said, decades later when there are children from those people, and you have a lot of the same characters showing back up in the film. A lot, actually. I was pretty surprised they got as many as they did, including the guy who played Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones. Nikolai, I know is his first name. I forget his last name. But I was the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, God, such a familiar face. And when I was watching the first one, and then I just decided to look him up, I'm like, Jaime Lannister. That's who it was. A really good actor, by the way. So anyway, and it's about the kids. This film ends up being a lot about, trying to protect your kids from the past and secrets that you have, because that's basically where the film starts, is one of the kids of one of the characters from the first film is kind of trying to uncover a family secret that they know is there because their father isn't really saying anything about something that they've heard bits and pieces of. They start doing their own research and they start going down this path, and things happen that are tied to the first film, and it's horror. So that's what I want to leave you with. I would encourage you, if you do want to watch this one, probably watch the first one, just because I do think it's a better film, and B, it'll give you that kind of connection. Although if you don't want to, you'll still know what's going on if you just want to watch this film. That's fine. All right, so getting into it. They tie it into the previous film immediately, but the tone feels different, and it feels a little bit odd of an idea to kind of make a little bit of a tonal shift. I don't want to go too much further into that, but you'll see what I mean if you've seen the first one and then you end up seeing this one. It feels very different. They both do have that kind of slow, leisurely pace to them. So much like the original Nightwatch, it's the pacing's not that great. I'm just going to tell you right now. I would say one of my criticisms of the first Nightwatch film is that the pacing is not great, and a chunk of the film needed to be cut out. That is even more so for this film. The pacing is even worse, and an even bigger chunk needed to be cut out of this one, because the runtime on this is like an hour and 53 minutes with credits. For what this story is, for how little story is actually told here, to take that long, to take almost 2 hours, is pretty ridiculous in my opinion. That said, there are some good things with this film. One of the big things being it looks really good. I think that Ole Bornedal, it looked good in the original Nightwatch. That one actually looked good. But this, you can tell, since then, this individual has been directing more, honing their craft, getting better at what they're doing, and it shows up here. The style is even better. It looks so much better. So cinematography looking a lot better, direction a lot better. So Those elements are better than the first one, but I think story-wise, it's not quite there, and pacing-wise, it's worse. Pacing wasn't great in the first one. Pacing is worse in this one. There's a lot in the beginning that feels like it's retreading the first film. Now, I'm wondering if that's mainly because they're thinking there's a high possibility that people will not have seen the first film and they'll just end up watching this, even though Shudder's dropping them on the same day. People will just be like, I'll just watch this new one because I don't like watching films from the 90s or whatever. So I don't fully fault them for taking that approach. I get it. But for someone like me who had just watched the original one, it is boring to be having all this stuff retread, and I actually think that they could have done it in kind of a quicker way. A lot of the actors from the first one are back, like I said. They do have a lot of nods to the first film, and not just like it's a continuation of it and they have the same characters, but there's literally pieces of dialogue that get reused that are memorable from the first one that get reused in the second one. So there are these kind of clever like winks at the audience being like, if you've seen the first one. So I do like that aspect of it. Those were kind of clever, fun things. But yeah, so there's a lot in common. The pacing is slow and they spend too much on long scenes that don't have much significance. This is another issue with the first one where I said a lot of the stuff could have been cut out. Is friend groups, the main character and their friend groups, they end up having a lot of interactions with them and scenes with them that, like, I get it. We already know what their relationship is. That's already been well established. We don't need an additional scene that doesn't actually mean anything or add anything to the film. Honestly, there also were a bunch of characters in this film who could have just been straight up cut out. We don't need them. We don't need to increase runtime for a film like this, especially when it's a very small story that's trying to be told. They don't go grandiose. There aren't a ton of twists and turns to it. So it just wasn't warranted to put all of this into it and just belabor the film, really. That's my biggest issue with this, is just you feel like it's a slog, unfortunately. It doesn't really get anywhere interesting until about the 50-minute mark, and then it quickly goes right back to just being a meandering film. Now, the first Nightwatch, it took about an hour until something super interesting happened, but once that happened, it stayed relatively interesting. With this one, it takes about 50 minutes, and then it has something interesting, and then it goes right back to being not that interesting for a very extended amount of time until you get to the very end where everything starts to come together. That said, the ending actually is not bad. I wouldn't say it's a great ending. I wouldn't say it's a bad ending. It's a fine ending for what we have here. The problem is it took us way too long to get to that ending, and the payoff doesn't feel like it was worth the journey, in my opinion, personally. How it's shot does look a lot better than the first one, like I already had said. The character of Martin could and should have been used in a much better way. He really gets reduced to a bumbling, cowardly idiot, in essence. And he was a much more interesting character in the first film. So also who the actor is, I thought you're really wasting this by having this character kind of feel like it doesn't even matter that they're in the film except for just existing. They don't really have a whole lot scene-wise. I mean, they're in the film enough, but their scenes don't do anything for the character. Like, it's a big change from the first film to the second film with what's going on with this character. And, like, you can understand what they're going through to some degree, but at the same time, I feel like it's overkill. It's just at a ridiculous level. And at some point, you're just like, dude, like, do something. Like, pick yourself up and let's start, like, acting like a human being here. Stop, like, in essence, laying on the floor. Not in actuality, but, mentally, like, laying on the floor. It's like, come on. There are a lot of characters not needed to tell the story. I already said that. There's something kind of interesting that they do towards the end. Again, that goes to the whole, like, it's a fine ending. I see what they were going for. But again, it's just too long for what that ending is. You don't have to have seen the first film to watch this one, but the first one is a better film. I'm going to say it again. I would honestly say just watch the first film, and I wouldn't really recommend then watching this one, really, unless you're super curious about where the filmmaker decided to take things after the first one. I honestly, after the first one was over, was like, how are they going to do another one? It just didn't seem like a logical step to me to do a sequel to that movie, especially, what, 30 years later? It's just like, you know, I don't know. It didn't make sense. This film deals in family secrets and how parents try to protect their children from traumas past. Also, just the fact that trauma and with one generation can pass on to other generations in one way or another, because, information ends up coming out even though parents are trying to protect their kids from that type of stuff. And if you don't properly deal with traumas, it can end up impacting ones that you love, directly or indirectly. So I get that about the film. I think that's fine to have in there, but I think they're way too in your face about it at times, and you just didn't need to take the time that you took to do it. But anyway, out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I'm going to give it a 2.5-star rating. I didn't hate the film. I didn't really like it that much either. It's not a bad film, but it's also not all that good of a film in my opinion. So that's all I have to say about that one. Anyway, give me your thoughts and opinions on this film. Go ahead and put it in the comments. We can talk spoilers there. That's totally fine. Hit the notification. Oh my gosh. I'm all out of whack. Sorry, it's been a day. Hit the thumbs up on this video and other videos of mine to help me out that YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to give me a thank you for the free content, that's your best way to thank me. And hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. But regardless, thank you very much for your time watching this video. And until next time, keep it brutal.